Located at the end of the Mani Peninsula in Greece, you'll find a small landmass called Cape Matapan. The caves in this area open at sea level into a cliff face beneath the headland, the exact point marked by the ruins of a Spartan temple above. The inhabitants built several temples at the site, with the most notable being in dedication to Poseidon and Apollo, for which Strabo in the 1st century AD and Pausanias in the 2nd century AD describe a cult temple that worshipped Poseidon and fronted a cave-like temple on the headland. The cave was believed to be the gateway to Hades, the realm of the dead named for the patron god of the underworld, in which the departed souls were transported across the rivers Styx and or Acheron by Charon the ferryman to be judged on whether they would reside in Elysium or Tartarus. This was one of the several entrances that the ancient Greeks ascribed to Hades, the kingdom of the shades. Others were to be found at the Necromantian of Ephyra, as well as at Alipotropa, another smaller cave network on the Mani. Here, according to the stories, is the place where Orpheus entered the underworld in search of his lost love Eurydice. When the hero Hercules passed down into the underworld, it was again through the Cape Matapan caves. These are not the only legend ascribed to the remote peninsula, however. The Spartans viewed this as a highly significant place of worship, and they built several temples to their gods along the rocky headland. Most prominent amongst the surviving ruins are the remains of a temple dedicated to the sea god Poseidon, located on a hill directly above the cave to Hades. Another story related by Pausanias linked to the picturesque cape relates to the poet Arion, who escaped from pirates to be carried ashore by a pod of dolphins. A bronze statue of the poet riding a dolphin stands on the crest of the cape, not far from the ruins of a temple raised in honor of the sea god Poseidon. The caves at Matapan can still be entered by visitors, although a boat is required to pass through the watery mouth of this particular hellgate. In at number 4 we have Acton Tunichil Muknal Cave in Belize. Uncovered in 1980, the Acton Tunichil Muknal is a mine archaeological site that includes skeletons, ceramics, and stoneware. Acton Tunichil Muknal Cave, otherwise known as the Cave of the Stone Sepulcher, was first entered by the Mayans in AD 300 to 600. It was not until the late AD 700 to 900 that the Mayans went deeper into the cave to perform their ceremonies. The cave is a maze of chambers along with a cathedral-like area for ceremonial sacrifices. In the cave, archaeologists found numerous skeletons, but what makes it even creepier is the fact that most of the skeletons belong to sacrificed people. Many of the remains and artifacts are completely calcified in the cave. Almost all lost their lives to blunt trauma to the head, while most of the pottery found at the site dates from between 700 to 900 AD, which is likely when the bodies found here were sacrificed. One of the cave's most notorious features is the skeleton of a girl whose bones have been calcified into a crystallized appearance. This skeleton is known as the Crystal Maiden. It is unknown what the circumstances of the sacrifices were, though some believe they were to appease the rain god Chak, or possibly the gods of the underworld. Another theory holds that these were believed to be witches, possibly suffering from some kind of mental or physical ailments, and that leaving them unburied in the cave would ensure that their spirits were trapped there. Therefore, from the location to the remains that were found and rituals that were performed here, it's safe to assume that this might just be one of the places that the devil may be hiding. In at number 3 we have the Gates of Guinea in New Orleans. According to voodoo mythology, the newly dead are sent to a kind of purgatory before traveling to meet their ancestors in the deep waters. Known as Guinea, this realm is presided over by the notorious Loire, who goes by the name of Baron Samedi. Often depicted as a skeleton in corpse paint dressed in a top hat and tails, the Baron is a powerful symbol of death and rebirth, guarding the crossroads which form portals to other worlds. The most important of all these portals are the Gates of Guinea themselves. While some followers of voodoo interpret the 7 gates as a spiritual metaphor, others believe them to exist in the physical realm. One of these stories locates the gates in New Orleans. To enter Guinea, it is said that one must open the 7 gates in the correct order. There are tales of voodoo practitioners opening the Gates of Guinea to reclaim the souls of the dead. Souls in this lost land are also considered to be at high risk from hoodoo magicians, who have the power to reanimate them as zombies. Although the exact locations of the gates have never been disclosed, there have been oblique suggestions over the years that a clue may lie in the Vevi, or summoning sigil of Baron Samedi himself. Appearing as a crucifix surmounted by 7 stars, the symbol might indeed serve as a map of sorts. Once aligned over the crossroads of Canal Street and Basin Street in the city's French Quarter, the stars of the Vevi seem to fall on notable surrounding cemeteries. Therefore, it's not too uncommon to believe that this might be the spot the devil is hiding, with all the talks of spirits, the Baron, and the underworld at this location. In at number 2 we have the 7 Gates of Hell in Pennsylvania. In a quiet little backwater of York, Pennsylvania, one finds Helm Township, by all accounts a pleasant, friendly town and unremarkable were it not be for the rumored existence of a gateway to hell in a nearby forest. One of the better known legends tied to the location is that an insane asylum on the town's outskirts which supposedly burnt to the ground in the 19th century. 7 gates were built surrounding the remains of the asylum. At every gate, with the distance closing in, the police found more of the escaped patients, capturing them peaceably but killing any that showed aggression in violent ways. According to this particular legend, the inmates, most of them criminally insane, escaped, only to be recaptured using a series of tall fences and security gates. Many lost their lives to guards in the process. What the police and citizens didn't realize was that the construction of the gates prevented the souls of the dead from passing on to the other side, forcing them to be trapped for eternity in the remains of the asylum. Legend says the anger, hate, and violence in these souls caused a rift that allowed for hell to open, the gates preventing anything to be let out but also preventing anything from traveling in. An alternate story tells of a doctor who once lived in the town. This man, by some accounts a Satanist, was said to have designed a series of strange gates on this land, which followed a winding path running deeper and deeper into the forest, where stories agree is that those who pass through the gates in order will find themselves transported straight to the underworld. Only the first gate is visible by daylight, situated in woodland just off Helm's Trout Run Road. Regardless of what the origin of the gates are, if you were to take a trip to the gates, you'll only find one. The rest of the gates can only be seen during the night. They exist in a realm between light and dark and can only be accessed at that time. If you were to find and pass through all 7 gates, you'll find yourself in hell, unable to escape and trapped for all of eternity. Those who have tried to look for the gates report seeing shadow figures wandering through the forest, the smell of something burning, and screams in the distance. Worst of all, some say they know of a few who have found at least 5 gates, but went off looking for the 6th they never returned. And finally, in another one, we have Pluto's Gate in Turkey. Known as Pluto's Gate or Plutonian in Greek, the archaeological site in southwestern Turkey was discovered in 2013 after following the route of a thermal spring. The site matches closely the description of the temple to the underworld that disappeared in the 6th century. The most notable feature of this gate is that deadly vapor still is blown out of the gate. Additionally, this location was once used in ancient rituals to the gods of the underworld and still claims the lives of unfortunate birds who get too close. An archaeological dig revealed the remains of an ancient temple situated on a thermal spring, long believed to have been a gateway to hell. This well-documented temple of Pluto disappeared from record sometime around the 6th century. Amongst the distinguishing features of this particular gate are the toxic fumes that waft out from the tunnels beneath. In times of antiquity, these were often inhaled by the priests of Pluto, promptly sending them into hallucinogenic trance states. Writing at some time around the year 0 AD, the Greek philosopher Strabo claimed that any animal that passes inside meets instant death. Even now, the poisonous vapors claim the lives of birds that fly or nest too close to the ruins. Only the eunuchs of Cybele, an ancient fertility goddess, were able to enter the Hellgate without any apparent damage, the report said. With the mysterious deadly vapor and ancient rituals, the gods being transformed at this location, it's not hard to believe that the devil may just be lurking deep within the temple.
Number 5 on this list is the Black Forest. The Black Forest is located in Germany and would be the perfect hiding spot for the devil if he was to camp out in the woods. Trip Savvy writes, when the Romans arrived in these woods, they were spooked by its impenetrable darkness and named it the Black Forest. In German, this place is known as the Schwarzwald and has developed a fairy tale persona for its iconic cuckoo clock, world famous spas, and numerous monasteries, castles, and ruins. Legend holds that it is haunted by werewolves, witches, and even the devil. The tale of Der Grossman is that of a tall, horribly disfigured man with bulging eyes and many arms. Bad children who entered the forest were made to confess their sins to him, and the worst children were never found again. Or consider a grim original. The story of Die Gensmegd tells of a princess on her way to meet the prince in a faraway kingdom. But the maid accompanying her had ill intentions and forced the young princess to trade places with her. The maid took her magical steed, a talking horse called Falada, and when they arrived at the castle, the false princess had Falada killed to hide her misdeed, and the real princess work as a goose girl. The real princess has Falada's skull hung over the city's gate, earning the attention of the king. She tells her story and he punishes the false princess by rolling her around the city in a spiked barrel until she died. Those are a bunch of legends that pertain to this forest, but the most common one that isn't even mentioned there is the Headless Horseman. People have often spotted a Headless Horseman racing around these woods, and some people have said that he's even kidnapped individuals before. This forest is almost completely without light as well. Like, it's just dark all the time, and even if the sun is totally out, shadows will cover this whole place, making it very difficult to see. This place is teeming with evil energy. They knew it back then when the Romans came into this place. They knew it when the Brothers Grimm made stories about this place. And the locals still know it now. The Black Forest in Germany is a prime spot where the devil could be hiding, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is. Number 4 on this list is the Pine Barrens. Now, this forest might not be home to the devil that you're thinking of, but it is certainly home to a devil. CN Traveler writes, "The heavily forested Pine Barrens spans over 1 million acres and 7 counties in New Jersey. The area thrived during the colonial era, host to sawmills, paper mills, and other industries. People eventually abandoned the mills in surrounding villages when coal was discovered to the west in Pennsylvania, leaving behind ghost towns and some say a very supernatural wanderer. The most popular Pine Barrens resident is without a doubt the Jersey Devil. According to legend, the creature was born in 1735 to Deborah Leeds, her 13th child, with leathery wings, a goat's head, and hooves. It flew up the Leeds chimney and into the Barrens, and it's been killing livestock and creeping out South Jersey residents ever since." The Jersey Devil is one of the most famous urban legends in the world. Now, this isn't the actual devil. We aren't talking about Satan here who rules over the underworld, but still, this is a very menacing creature that you would not want to run into. We also know for a fact that this creature is, in fact, living out in these haunted woods. Artists' renditions of this creature have it looking like half horse, half bird, half demon. Also, just because it eats livestock doesn't mean that it won't take a bite out of a human either. This is a forest that should be avoided at all costs. Number 3 on this list is the Pokiani Forest. The Pokiani Forest is located in Latvia and needs to be thought of as a potential hiding spot for the devil. The reason is there might be a secret hidden portal to hell right there. CN Traveler says there's nothing particularly strange about Pokiani Forest at first glance until you notice the mysterious heaps of moss-covered rocks. These piles are strewn randomly throughout the forest, causing much speculation and folktales among visitors. Some claim that the forest is an old site for pagan rituals and it now has the mystic ability to heal people. Visitors even bring offerings to the stones to enhance their powers. Other visitors, though, attribute more sinister qualities to the forest, believing it to be a gateway to a parallel universe. There are reports of people suffering and even dying shortly after leaving the woods, and locals warn that stealing a rock will end in a stint of bad luck. It's that parallel universe and the rituals that interest me here. I think that there's actually a lot more going on at this forest than meets the eye. That having this be an innocent, normal collection of trees is what some people want you to think. I was reading up on this, and it seems that there could have been a lot of satanic rituals performed here back in the day. Is it possible that maybe one of those rituals actually worked? That they were able to open a portal to hell and release Satan? And now the devil uses this forest as a way to travel between the two worlds? I'd ask you guys to go check it out for yourself, but that probably wouldn't be the safest, so we may never know. Number 2 on this list is the Yawata no Yabushiraza forest. That is one heck of a mouthful, so from here on out, we're going to call this forest YNY. YNY is located in Japan and is apparently one of the country's most haunted spots. That's a pretty big title to hold because Japan is full of haunted locations and scary sights. This forest is particularly bad though because entering it could mean the end of your life. There is an extensive history with this forest and people disappearing. For some reason, when people go into this forest, they don't often come out. It's thought that their souls get spirited away to a faraway land. Now let's think about this for a second. Why or how could something like this be happening? Well, maybe the devil is chilling out in these woods and those souls are actually getting spirited straight down to hell. No one's been able to think of a logical explanation behind the disappearances, but the devil seems to make the most sense to me. This is a deep and lush forest, perfect for hiding, and whenever anyone comes in here, the devil just takes him away. I hope it's not true, but it very well could be. And finally, number 1 on this list is the hoia-baciu forest. The hoia-baciu forest is on everybody's list of the most haunted places in the world, and therefore would be a great spot for the devil to be hiding out. My Best Places says the hoia-baciu forest is often referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, as it's said to be inhabited by the devil in person, by ghosts, and perhaps even aliens. The forest gained notoriety around the 1960s when biologist Alexandru Sift photographed a flying object in the sky above the forest. After this incident, other inexplicable events soon followed, including the disappearance of a shepherd and his 200 sheep, which were never found again, and the disappearance of a 5-year-old girl who later reappeared 5 years later wearing the same clothes and without having aged even one day. A woman also disappeared after a long time with a 15th century coin in his pocket, and the case of a missing woman having reappeared in the forest with a 15th century coin in her pocket. There have also been many first-hand reports from people who have entered the forest only to come out with burns, severe rashes, headaches, and high fever, which they didn't have before. Some studies have revealed higher than usual radioactivity produced by natural uranium present in the subsoil. Pretty much everything imaginable has happened in this forest. There have even been reports of a literal UFO landing here several decades ago, guys. This place might have the most paranormal activity concentrated into one spot in the whole planet. So let's ask ourselves, why would a random forest in Romania have all this paranormal energy? Well, maybe it's because the freaking devil's there. Maybe the devil is in this forest and it's attracted all this other stuff to stop anyone from finding him. To my knowledge, there haven't been any major wars in this forest or anything like that, so it's not like a major tragedy is drawing these ghosts and demons here. I think most likely scenario is that it's the devil. Number 5 on this list is the Yosemite National Park. This massive forest is located in California, and if it wasn't so bloody haunted, it would probably be pretty beautiful. CN Traveler says, Yosemite National Park is beloved for its epic waterfalls and giant groves, but there are areas of the park that might give you a different kind of goosebump. For example, some visitors who have hiked into the Chilnualna Falls trailhead reported hearing the distinct sound of someone crying. Native American folklore attributes the cries to a boy who drowned in nearby Gross Lake. His spirit calls out for help, but any hikers who venture into the lake will get pulled under and drown. Another Native American legend claims that some of the waterfalls in the park are haunted by an evil wind that draws people to the edge of the falls and then blows them off the cliff. A wind that draws people to the edge of the falls and then blows them off the cliff. Sounds to me like something evil might be going on here. Maybe even the work of the devil. I'm not sure who that child was and if that legend was actually true or not, but having a wind hypnotize people to the point where they jump off a cliff, that doesn't happen every day, guys. Also, let's circle back to that story with the child. Well, how did he drown? It's possible that it could have just been an accident, I'm sure, but is there something else afoot? Maybe whatever creature calls to people from the cliff also calls to them from the water too. That would be very similar to the urban legend of the water babies, where there are literal children who died in the water and now try to lure others to their death in said water. Maybe that's what this child is doing now. However, I also think it's possible that there is no child at all involved here, no water babies or anything like that. It could just be one entity doing all of this nonsense. Maybe the devil's hiding out here and it really was him all along. Number 4 on this list is the Epping Forest. Located in England, this forest has been a hotspot for criminals and all things evil for basically ever. CN Traveler says the size and density of Epping Forest have made it a popular hideout for criminals and an infamous burial spot for bodies. Notorious highwayman Dick Turpin hid there in the early 1700s, and more than a dozen murder victims have been discovered in the woods since the 1960s. Now, it's no surprise then that this forest has developed a reputation for spooky sounds and ghostly apparitions. Some people also claim that if you drive to Hangman's Hill and park in neutral, your car will slowly be pulled uphill. Even if you don't believe in the myths, just the appearance of the woods is likely to send a chill up your spine. The pollarded trees haven't been cut since the late 1800s, giving them an unusually overgrown and bulbous look. So I looked into Dick Turpin, guys, and this dude was rotten to the core. A real highwayman who just robbed and murdered his way through life. Any forest that's about to attract a dude like this certainly has my attention. All the death, all the criminal activity, and then the fact that we're getting ghostly apparitions, all of these things lead me to thinking that this could be a decent hiding spot for the devil. Also, what the heck is that hill thing about? If you park your car in neutral, it just rolls up a hill? Like, that literally defies all the laws of physics that we know of. At the very least, something paranormal is going on here, that much is clear. I think there's a good chance though that whatever paranormal thing is happening here could have a tie with the devil. Number 3 on this list is the Smolensky Forest. This is a forest in Russia that is just riddled with tragedy. Reader's Digest says, in 1943, at the height of World War II, German troops invaded the Smolensk forest and discovered a mass grave containing thousands upon thousands of dead Polish soldiers. Ultimately, it was determined they'd been massacred on Joseph Stalin's orders. If the presence of 20,000 lost souls wasn't enough to frighten people away, then the tragic plane crash that took place in 2010, which killed 96 Polish political, military, and business leaders, hammered the nail into the coffin, so to speak. Horrible, guys. Just a horrible place that has seen some horrible things. I don't think that anybody would be shocked if the devil popped up here and just appeared to be hiding out in this Russian forest the whole time. Obviously, to any regular human being, that wouldn't be a place that you'd want to go, but I imagine the devil probably be loving it. Number 2 on this list is the Daring Woods. Another English forest here, and another one that features a highwayman. CN Traveler says the Daring Woods are commonly referred to as the Screaming Woods, or, you know, a perfect place to host your next family camping trip. Visitors report hearing blood-curdling screams coming from the forest depths at night, as well as footsteps and whispers on foggy days. The screams are often attributed to a highwayman who was captured and killed by villagers in the 18th century, and whose ghost apparently still holds quite the grudge. Others believe the hauntings are the result of a 1948 massacre where 20 people were supposedly found dead in the forest the morning of November 1st. Residents reported seeing strange lights emanating from the woods that Halloween night, and autopsies of the bodies couldn't determine a cause of death. 20 people dead in one place in a horrible massacre. The devil might not still be here, but we can say for sure that he was during that horrible tragedy. It's also very possible that a forest like this, one that has had such a bad tragedy, would attract the devil. Apparently it's super foggy here all the time as well, which is probably just another good reason to want to hide here. Daring Woods in England is one that should definitely be avoided, I think, guys. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Aokigahara Forest. This is one of the most infamous forests in the entire world and has a horrible reputation to it. CN Traveler says, this seemingly serene forest at the foot of Mount Fuji has a tormented past. Colloquially known as Suicide Forest, Aokigahara has had the world's second highest rate of suicides after the Golden Gate Bridge in 2010 alone. 247 people attempted to take their own lives, and 54 of them were successful. Some blame this trend on the forest's association with demons in Japanese mythology. Others point towards the density of the trees, which muffles sound and makes it easier to get lost. In fact, many hikers will mark their path with tape or string to make it easier to find their way back out. The sprinkling of clothing and letters left throughout the labyrinth-like woods gives Aokigahara that extra touch that will leave you in a cold sweat. Now, one thing that CN Traveler doesn't even mention here is hoia-baciu. Hoia-baciu is a horrible practice where people will take the elderly or the sick out into the middle of nowhere and just leave them there. This apparently used to happen a lot in Japan and still does happen to this day. If you can't take care of your grandma anymore, no worries, just take her into the forest and leave her there. It is a truly horrible, horrible thing that happens here regularly. Either way, this forest is super messed up and it seems like the perfect spot for the devil. Why is there such a high number of people taking their own lives? Why is it so eerie? Why do people take the elderly and leave them out here? Maybe it's because the devil is playing with their minds. You enter this forest feeling one way, you walk out completely different, if of course you're one of the lucky ones enough to walk out. I'd avoid this forest at all costs, folks. It may have the devil lurking inside.